Birth of a civilization. King Narmer, the unification of Egypt, and the First Dynasty. Prehistoric origins and the agricultural revolution. The oldest human remains found in Egypt are approximately 33,000 years old, and it's believed that humans were in Egypt for much longer, originally coming from East Africa. The first evidence of farming in Egypt is in northern Egypt and the fertile Fayum Basin around 6000 BC, but there's evidence of agricultural use of the land dating back to 8000 BC. The domestication of the donkey happened between 4800 and 4500 BC, which is thought to be connected to the increase of long distance trade that occurred around the same time period. By 4100 BC, permanent year round agricultural villages were established in parts of Egypt. The city of Shedet in the Fayum Basin was founded around 4000 BC and is considered to be one of the oldest cities in Egypt and in Africa. Ancient Egyptian civilization was indebted to the Nile River and its dependable seasonal flooding, as the river's predictability and the fertile soil allowed the Egyptians to thrive on the basis of great agricultural wealth. Egyptians are credited as being one of the first groups of people to practice agriculture on a large scale. This was possible because of their ingenuity as they developed irrigation. Their farming practices allowed them to grow stable food crops, especially grains such as wheat and barley, and industrial crops such as flax and papyrus. Upper and Lower Egypt. The pre-dynastic period is what historians call the period before unification in the First Dynasty. Before unification, Lower and Upper Egypt were distinct from each other in several ways. Lower Egypt is the land surrounding the northern part of the Nile by the Mediterranean coast. Since the land near the banks of the Nile was fertile and ideal for agriculture, it was named Kemet, meaning black land, because of its dark, fertile soil. Lower Egypt enjoyed a Mediterranean climate which was milder and had much more rainfall. Land was divided into small territories called nomes. The king of Lower Egypt wore a red crown called a desheret. Upper Egypt is the land surrounding the southern part of the Nile. Because this land is near the Sahara, it was named Desheret, meaning red land, because of the desert climate with red, sandy soil. Upper Egypt also had nomes, and their capital was called Thinis. The capital of Upper Egypt wore a red crown or a hejet. Lower and Upper Egypt developed roughly on par with each other, but by around 3200 BC, Upper Egypt gained a tactical advantage as they had more advanced trade networks, which allowed them to have a stable and developed economy and access to more technology and people. Egyptian unification in the First Dynasty. Around 3150 BC, the frequent war between the two parts of Egypt culminated with the king of Upper Egypt, Narmer, also known in legends as Menes, leading an army into Lower Egypt and conquering it completely. Even after Menes was able to unite Egypt militarily, the peoples of Upper and Lower Egypt continued to fight one another despite sharing the same culture, language, and religion. Narmer then creates a white and red crown to fully incorporate both parts of Egypt and relieve tensions, which he successfully does, and the unified kingdom is known as the Two Lands by the ancient Egyptians. Narmer further solidifies his rule by marrying a Lower Egyptian princess named Neith-hotep, who would birth his eventual heir, Hor-Aha. Neith-hotep is probably the earliest non-mythical woman in history whose name is known to us today. Narmer then builds a city on the site of the final battle between Upper and Lower Egypt, the capital city of Memphis, which was one of the largest cities in the ancient world. Narmer also expanded the kingdom's borders east into Canaan and south into Nubia. Narmer died after being attacked by a hippopotamus and was laid to rest in a necropolis in the Upper Egyptian city of Abydos. Under King Hor-Aha, the city of Memphis continued to blossom as he built a grand palace there. Hor-Aha is thought to have continued Narmer's military campaigns against the Nubians in the south and started the practice of retainer sacrifice in Egypt, where his servants were sacrificed after his death to serve him in the afterlife. Mernith, the wife of Djet, the fourth pharaoh in the First Dynasty and Narmer's great-grandson, is also thought to be the first female pharaoh and the first recorded queen regnant in history. Den, the son of Mernith and Djet, was known for being the first pharaoh to have a more extravagant tomb than the other pharaohs of the First Dynasty, as his tomb had a stairwell, massive burial chamber, and a granite floor instead of a tomb just made of mud bricks. He is also the first pharaoh to be depicted with the Nekaka and started many rituals of royalty in the courts. He also expanded the boundaries of Egypt with conquests in the Sinai Peninsula. After Den, there was a string of unremarkable pharaohs, with Kwa'a being the last ruler of the first dynasty. Kwa'a either had no children of his own, or his sons fought over the throne, because after his death, war broke out for succession, but was ultimately resolved by another prince known as Hotep Se Huangwi, who went on to start the second dynasty. The first dynasty saw Egypt finally unite and grow in power and wealth from a largely agrarian society to an increasingly urbanized state, eventually becoming one of the most important civilizations and forever altering the course of human history. Thank you.